Jarrette reporters, welcome back to my channel. As you know, we've got our first Love is Blind divorce in 2 seasons now, and it's none other than Iyanna and Jarrette. I have to say, I'm not surprised, number one. And number two, I'm really proud of Iyanna for reclaiming her time and getting out of this relationship, this marriage. And number three, I think Nick and Danielle are next. But let's stick to the topic at hand, which is Iyanna and Jarrette's divorce. I always said from the very beginning that Iyanna never should have even married Jarrette to start with. The red flags were always there. I think she just convinced herself into believing that like she could make this work. And unfortunately, life just doesn't work that way. You could be like the nicest, kindest, most like gentle, loving woman in the world. But if that man don't want you, that man don't want you. You know what I mean? And I think that unfortunately is the case. So speaking of the red flags, let's back things up to the very beginning. When Iyanna and Jarrette meet in the first episode of the show, what does Jarrette tell her? That he was stabbed by a friend in the middle of an argument. And not only that, but he spent his time in the hospital completely alone. To me, I would have run in the other direction because number one, what kind of person would just pick up a knife and stab you in the middle of an argument except for a crackhead or a drug dealer or someone who works above you and you're the drug dealer and you owe them money or something like that? Just weird, bad, shady, sketchy people. And I don't want, those types of people in my life, so I would run the other direction. And number two, why was he in the hospital alone? Was it COVID restrictions? It could have possibly been that, but even then, like your friends would have been virtually calling you, FaceTiming you all the time just to make sure that you don't feel alone. And the fact that he did not have that, to me, spoke volumes about his character. I'm just gonna say, imagine that you get stabbed and nobody takes even a moment out of their day to check on you, to make sure you're still alive, to make sure you still got your kidneys, to make sure you still got your liver, to make sure you do not have a punctured lung, to make sure your heart's still beating. Nobody. That's insane to me. It really is. So now let's get into some more issues within this relationship and the way that they set it up. We also saw in the first episode that the two of them bonded over struggle and trauma. We saw Jarrette talking about the stabbing and not having any friends or, other family members really wanting to reach out to him after that. Iyanna talked about the trauma of her parents not being able, her biological parents not being able to raise her growing up, with other people who adopted her. I think she was in foster care, stuff like that. I know that Black love is very heavily marketed as, heavily markets struggle as acceptable, even honorable in most cases, but let's face it, it's toxic and I don't think it's a good foundation to build a relationship on. And I call your attention to this. Compare Jarrette's bonding with Iyanna over struggle with the way that he bonded over Mallory on the show. Did he ever try to dig deep and to figure out what's traumatizing to Mallory? Did he get into his stabbing situation with her? No, they were just talking about, her being a homeowner and just fun, chill, lighthearted conversations. It felt to me like, as usual, the struggle is reserved for the strong Black woman, and that I cannot get down with. Now, moving a little bit further along, this is towards the end of the show once they've already decided to be engaged and stuff, but when Iyanna went to Jarrette's house, she saw that grown man who signed up for a show about being ready for marriage did not even have a proper bed. I don't know if it was a water bed, an air mattress or whatever, but it was not a proper bed. I think, those psychologist chairs, where you lie down on at the shrink and then it's got that little wave or whatever. I think that's what he was sleeping on. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but at my age, and the age of the men that I date, 35-ish or something like that, if you do not have a proper bed, I'm not dating you. You know what I mean? I just can't. I don't have the time for it. You're not ready. And you're getting stabbed and no one's checking on you. This is a lot. This is a lot for me to take in. I would have just not said yes at the altar. So she just kept excusing a lot of things. And the worst of it to me was the way that he would lie to her and do sneaky things behind her back. So for example, at the reunion, very not surprisingly, Nick Lachey and Vanessa Lachey ask about whether Iyanna was Jarrette's backup choice or whatever, if he only proposed because Mallory said no. Jarrette straight up lies and claims that he did not propose to Mallory before Iyanna, which I really don't like when people lie off of technicalities. You know what I mean? Like in episode 3 of the show, he very clearly tells us, the audience, that he likes Iyanna, but that he's thinking about proposing to Mallory. Not just thinking about, but that he wants to propose to Mallory. So the intent was there. The decision was clear. He was choosing Mallory over Iyanna. But then what happens? He sends he's very thoughtful in the way that he presents things to Mallory, because he thinks that Mallory deserves the best. She's a princess and he really wants to conquer his princess. So what does he do? He sends over like Mexican food, he sends over tacos or burritos or whatever over there so that they can enjoy them together, so that he could lay the foundation and ask the question, Mallory, if I were to propose to you, would you accept my proposal? To me, that's a cop-out, like he wanted to propose. Like, I feel like if she said yes, he would have been like, oh, well, I'm proposing. Will you say yes? Like, I love you, blah, blah, blah. And I feel like that's what he was ready for. And when Mallory said no, it was earth-shattering for him. We saw he couldn't breathe. He was sobbing. She was running out sobbing. It was hard for her too. But again, at the top of the episode, he very clearly tells us he likes Iyanna. She's aight. But I want to propose to Mallory. And then he sets up all of this beautiful stuff to set the stage for Mallory, you guys, you know what I mean? And again, I think he did this very strategically. Like, he knew that there was a chance that Mallory could say no, that she wasn't 1,000% into it, that she had somebody else on the side that she was also interested in. And he wanted to make sure that he would have that technicality to fall back on with Iyanna, his backup plan, if things didn't go the way that he wanted them to, And I really didn't like that when at the reunion, he sat up there and said, well, I never proposed, whatever, technically. And what was fascinating was, I think later on in that same episode, well, first of all, Iyanna, the simp vibes when Mallory runs into the girls section just crying, and you're the only one who goes over there to comfort her, and she's crying over your man who just tried to propose to her. Like, what? And you still said yes later? Like, what is it? Like, normally, like, my thing is like, all right, like, he is slanging, like, either he's really skilled or it's huge, but like, she didn't even see it yet. So I'm like, what's got you hooked, girl? What has got you hooked? You know what I think it is? Like, people always say prison D or like crazy D is good. So she's probably like, this man is getting stabbed. Like, I know he's at least slightly crazy. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. And that's why she wanted to, like, that's what I'm thinking. Like, I'm trying to understand what it is. Like, anyway, so Mallory goes and comforts her competition. And later on, Jarrette doesn't even try to be romantic to Iyanna. He just tells her, like, listen, like, oh, like, if you're still in it, like, I would like to continue with this. And did you notice that when he proposes to Iyanna later on in that same episode, after being so extravagant for Mallory, ordering all the food, having the place decorated with her culture, he does nothing, literally nothing for Iyanna. He just, what did he say? Hang on, let me look at my notes. All he tells her, and he uses that strong black woman trope that I hate so much. Like, Iyanna comes into the room, asks questions about what happened with Mallory and this and that. And so he answers them. And then he's like, basically like, oh, thanks so much for being so strong, through all of this, holding me down. And then he asks her to marry him without saying a single word about their love. All he tells her is she's strong just because she's willing to like stand on the sideline and comfort his dream girl when she's crying, And again, the room was empty. There was nothing. There was nothing that spoke to who Iyanna was. There was no decoration. There was nothing in that room after we saw the same episode, the way he decorated that room and went all out for Mallory. Like, I knew at that moment this was not working out. I knew that Iyanna would watch this back, because it's so easy to be manipulated when you're on the show, right? Like, she didn't know all of that was in there, I imagine. And like, if she would have asked him, he would have lied to her. So I could see why she would have said yes. But like, watching back the show, I'm like, I just know when this poor girl watches this show back, she's gonna be hurt. She's gonna be devastated. She's gonna see that this man ain't S-H-I-T, And again, when he was proposing to Mallory, it was all this beautiful stuff, like, well, pre-proposing. He was just talking about all these beautiful things he loved about her, and her personality and just who she was. He never told her that she was strong. Iyanna, like what? Like she just never gets the good romantic side of him, just like the let's struggle together side of him. And I just really do not like that. And so just to kind of round things up here, after Iyanna accepts the proposal, well, the backup proposal, she's talking to the camera about how she's excited to meet Jarrette. And she's like, listen, even if he were like an ogre or whatever, like I would still say yes. Nothing can make me regret saying yes to Jarrette. Meanwhile, on his side, what does Jarrette say? Listen, like, if she were missing a tooth, I don't know, man. I might not be into this. Like, really? Really? Like, again, like here she is just being so sincere, so hard on her sleeve, so genuine. And there he is being superficial with her again. Like, oh, if she were missing a tooth, you're not going to fly her to Turkey and replace that tooth, Jarrette? You're just gonna leave her and she would accept you as an ogre? Come on now, that's not equal love. And so, oh, and let's not even get to the most disrespectful thing of all. Remember when all the couples are tasked with meeting each other at that big resort thing or whatever? What happens? Jarrette beelines it for Mallory. And then you could see it in his eyes that he is like, wow, she's even more beautiful in person than I imagined. And not only that, but like, wow, like those feelings are still there and they're bubbling over when I'm seeing her in person and feeling her and smelling her, and just our connection. You know, our connection is so much stronger, in person. So you could just see the hurt in his eyes that she did not want to marry him. And then he wanted to rub it in that like she got a ring that she didn't like. You remember? He was like, oh, like, is that the ring you wanted? And she's like, no, it's totally not my style. He's like, yeah, I know. Like if I got to propose to you or whatever, I would have gotten you a gold ring because I know how much you like gold. And he's just like, really? And she's just like flirting with him back. Like they were both so disrespectful to their fiancés that night. And yeah, like just after all of that. But here's the thing, Iyanna knew about that and she still married him. And so one thing that I hope for Iyanna, beautiful, bubbly, angelic, wonderful Iyanna, is that as she goes through this divorce, she really comes to understand how wonderful she is and how much better she deserves out of a man, out of a partner, out of a whatever it is that she wants to settle down with. You know what I mean? Like, Iyanna, you don't deserve to be anybody's second choice. You really don't, you know, and just try to do some work on yourself or with the help of a counselor or something to understand why you would settle for that, because it's just so beneath you. Like, you know, she's just got all these wonderful qualities. She looks like just such a ray of sunshine to be around. And it's just so sad how like those people, those wonderful people, are the ones that just don't see it in themselves, you know? And I really want her to see herself the way that we see her. I feel like we all love her so much and we just see her for the amazing, brilliant, just sparkly, lovely person that she is. And I really hope that she gets to see that for herself and that she carries that standard moving forward in her relationships, and she does not accept struggle love ever again. Guys, what do you think? Do you agree that Iyanna never should have married Jarrette in the first place? Did you see all of these red flags coming? Let me know why or why not in the comment section down below, and as usual, we'll chat. That's all for now. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.